Independence Blue Cross Bull Session, a weekly recap of your 2023 Phillies. Broadcasting live from Chickies and Pete's. Tonight's show is brought to you by Team Toyota, BCWSA, Fogo de Show, Independence Blue Cross, and Capital Grill. Now, here are your hosts, Phillies PA announcer Dan Baker and Mickey Morandini.
Hello everybody, welcome to the Independence Blue Cross Bull Session. We're at Chickies and Pete's flagship at 15th and Packer in South Philadelphia, in the heart of the Philadelphia Sports Complex, and we're ready to talk Phillies baseball. I'm Dan Baker, and co-hosting with me today, a 1995 National League All-Star second baseman. He played 9 of his 11 Major League seasons with the Phillies from 1990 to 2000. Ladies and gentlemen, number 12, Mickey Morandini.
Hi, Dan. Hi, Matt. How are you?
Oh, my goodness. You know, people come up to me all the time, Mickey, inside, and I love the way you say Mickey Morandini.
Oh, I get that all the time.
They're trying to encourage me to say, well, so I'm happy.
I miss it. I miss it, walking up to that plate and hearing you say it.
Well, listen, we've got a guy whose voice is synonymous with Phillies baseball, and who last year coined the phrase, which is going to be a motto, I think, for a long time: Bedlam at the bank. The he's in his 17th season as the Phillies' main radio play-by-play announcer. SMU, a Mustang, started his career down there, actually a couple of stints with the Texas Rangers. He and the chemistry, the knowledge, the humor, it's just, it would be hard-pressed to find two announcers that form a better radio team in Major League Baseball.
I probably have to disagree with you on the knowledge part, but
ladies and gentlemen, the Phillies, Scott Franzke.
I think we need to get him and Larry up for the Wall of Fame, huh?
Yeah. They did get an award as a twosome a couple of years ago from the Philadelphia Sports Writers, and Scott was also the winner of the 2010 and 2015 Pennsylvania Sportscaster of the Year Award, given by the National Association, and the Bill Campbell Award. Sports Writers Association in 2017. So Scott, you certainly have a home here. You're beloved by your audience, fans, players, and
it's been a great ride. It's been a lot of fun. I can't imagine doing what I do anywhere else. I pinch myself all the time how this worked out, and when you start in a career in baseball broadcasting, not unlike being a player, you're just looking for an opportunity somewhere and that's offered to you, and you try to make the most of it. And I was real fortunate to end up not only with a partner that I like a lot, which you never get to pick your partner. I got to work for a fabulous company. I got there at a time when things were getting really, really good in 2006. So it's been a heck of a ride. I just love it here. So,
Mickey, I wanted to ask you about the fan base and something that perhaps you and Scott and I can touch on. The beautiful reaction the other night Phillies first came back to start this homestand, and Trey Turner.
Yeah.
And I guess it started on WIP or the internet or somewhere, whatever it was. People got the notion that when Trey was introduced, they would give him a standing ovation, and a lot of them did. I don't know whether that was the plan, but Trey responded over the weekend with, I guess, the
next night.
Next night with the home run and the double. And Mickey, what I wanted to ask you was, how does the fervor, the enthusiasm in the crowd compare to the 1993 National League champions when you were drawing gigantic crowds at Veterans Stadium?
I think it's similar. There was a real good bond between us and the fans in '93. You know, we got off to a really good start, and then the fans just kept coming out, and before you know, we had 50,000 fans at Vet Stadium. But there was a really good bond. The way we played the game, we played hard, we played the right way. We fought down to the last out, and this team is similar to that. There's a bond between these players. They go out there, they have so much fun, and they get along so well. That's the one thing I like about this team is they pull for each other, and they were pulling for Trey big time. You know, every time he gets a hit, you can tell. And what the fans did, I think, was a great gesture. You know, we get a bad rap here in Philadelphia. Everybody knows it about our fans. They're very passionate. They're very knowledgeable. And for them to root for Trey, even though he's going through some struggles, I thought was awesome. Trey he's got to wipe out the first 4 months of this season and just look forward and try and help this team win as many games as possible.
Well, for one thing, when you look at what he accomplished with Washington and later the Los Angeles Dodgers, I mean, he's been consistently good throughout his career, and you'd have to think that at some point, you know, water seeks its own level. He's going to play the way Trey Turner can play. Scott, how do you feel about this year's Phillies team? How do you compare it to last year? Do you see it kind of going in the same direction, getting better as we approach the postseason and giving us a good chance to make the playoffs?
Well, I do think, as you say, the water finds its level, and I think Trey's not alone in having certain struggles. And I think there's a number of guys on the club that are hoping for better finishes, you know, the final couple of months, whether it's Schwarber, whether it's Castellanos, whether it's JT Realmuto. You know, there's a lot of guys that certainly I mean, I think the Phillies said a lot about their club when they didn't go get a big bat at the trade deadline. They said, you know, we invested a lot of money in our offense, and it's time for these guys to sort of show up and shine and lead the way. But I think it's a similar club. I do. I think it's definitely a club that can get real hot at points. And whether that happens in the first 2 weeks of October like it did last year, who knows? But I think it's one of those situations where these guys, they know how to hit. They're good hitters. They're dangerous hitters. And if they get on a roll and if they catch fire, look out. I mean, the pitching's been really solid for a long time. Now, a good long stretch. I mean, really, that's been the reason for the turnaround at the start of June was the pitching got real good. The pitching got real consistent. Starters going deep into games, bullpen not having to be overworked and things like that. So I definitely see it's a similar club. Obviously, a lot of the personnel is the same, but if they catch fire at the right time, I don't see why they couldn't have a similar run this October to the one they had last year.
Wouldn't it be great? Last year in the postseason, Scott Franzke, how about the crowd reaction? It was you who coined that phrase, Bedlam at the bank. And was that real spontaneous? Were you anticipating a special moment and maybe had something in the back of your mind?
I think it's tough to I think as an announcer, I think you get in trouble if you're always planning for something, if you're expecting a certain thing to happen. And I've always tried to tried to operate with the idea that, look, I'm just going to say what I see. And you don't hear me say the same thing for every home run. I don't think every home run is the same. I've always left myself open to allow myself to just, again, it's a real basic form of journalism in a way. It's what do you see? Tell the audience what you see. And I think one of the things I saw in that moment was simply the reaction of the crowd. I felt like the crowd was definitely a story throughout the whole run. And the story to me was the way the crowd interacted with the players and the way, in turn, the players interacted with the crowd. There was this bond there that, like Mickey talked about with 93. He saw it develop and grow and strengthen as the season went along. We saw the same thing last year with this club. So for me, in that moment, so much of that was about the crowd, and I don't know, it just felt right to say something that painted the picture of what the crowd was all about, because that's what I saw. I mean, I saw the ball leave, and I saw hands and beers flying in the air and people jumping up and down. I mean, and that's all I was trying to reach for.
Well, you reached it and you grabbed it.
Thank
you. And my goodness, listening to it afterwards, I don't know how many times you've heard it. I've heard it a lot of times, and it gives me chills every time.
It's embedded in our open, and so I pretty much have to hear it every night. Sometimes I like to take the headphones off and not have to hear it all the time. But it's really flattering. I'm very humbled by the fact that it's something that's resonated with people, and it's something that people say to me. At Photo Day the other day, I get a lot of that now, and it's very humbling and flattering.
Mickey, you were out there on Photo Day the other day, and are still very popular with the fans. And,
he is,
and like to interact with them. And I guess this goes back to when you were a player also, and you were one of the most popular Phillies, and you remain so to this day.
I had so much fun doing that. It's a little easier to do when you're not playing a game that day. Yeah. It is, because, you're preparing for a game and then you got to go out and mingle for 45 minutes. It can be a tough thing for players. But it was fun for me. I had a blast. I didn't even make it the whole way around. I started at 4:30, I think it was, and about 5:40 or something like that, they pulled the fans off the field or whatever, and I was still on the field. I had just passed John Middleton, who was coming around, which I thought was awesome. But I had a blast doing it. Took a bunch of photos, and then Milton and I went up to Coca-Cola Alley up there and took photos with the fans for another hour. So it was a good night.
It was a crazy crowd. I mean, it was an enormous crowd for that. And, they hadn't done it in a few years, COVID and, going back before that. And it was an unbelievable crowd. I mean, they were 20 deep. All the way around, and it was fun. It was. I can understand Mick's point about guys trying to get ready for a game, but we saw a lot of guys who were playing that night, and they're out there. Yeah. I mean, Bryce is reuniting lost family members, and saw Reese out there. Reese is grabbing everybody's phone and doing the honors of taking the selfies. I think it's great. The players really did a great job with it.
It's time for our first commercial break on this week's edition of the Independence Blue Cross Bull Session at Chickies and Pete's in South Philadelphia. We'll be right back with Mickey Morandini, Scott Franzke, and me, Dan Baker, after these words.